Good evening, Midwest Star Wars fanatics. We are back after good old me and Travis here battling some good old sickness the past couple weeks, and we're back in action finally. Good to have you back, Travis.
Yep, good to be back and healthy, I guess. So.
Exactly. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Obviously, we talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight, but first, before we can go into anything, I got to thank our sponsor, TRG Toys and Collectibles. Again, make sure you head over to trgtoys.com. Check out their great selection of Star Wars, Marvel, He-Man, you name it, they have it there. So make sure you check out TRG Toys and Collectibles. Also, you can follow me and Travis, or Travis and I, at the hashtag show, and me at Star Wars Nerd 574, and Travis at the Indiana Salone. I about already said .com on there.
Yep.
So again, thank you all for tuning in. Again, let us know that you're here. Make sure you leave a comment, chime in, give StreamYard access so we actually know who's talking to us. Very excited to talk about tonight's episode. So without waiting anymore, let's talk about one of the best Star Wars arc stories out there. And we're going to talk tonight about Star Wars Rebels. I mean, when it first came out, I didn't know, like, at first that I really was going to get into Star Wars Rebels. And then it seems like once I started on it, I couldn't stop. It was just unreal seeing everything that's going on there. So, I mean, Travis, how about you? I know you're just getting caught up on Rebels. What was your thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was kind of the same way. Like, I watched Clone Wars and I really liked that. And I was like, okay, well, I should watch Rebels. And I watched, I think, the first episode. And I was like, maybe this isn't for me. The animation style is a little, it's quite a bit different, I guess, than Clone Wars was. Seemed like there was maybe more kid-friendly, things that would happen. So just like, people said it was good, but I was like, I don't know if this is for me. So I kind of set it aside. And then I had enough people kind of follow back up and be like, nope, you've got to go back. You got to do this. So I started back up. And yeah, I mean, really, I think after the first couple episodes, it's like, okay, yep, I was wrong. I got to look past the animation style. The storylines are good. The plot points they have are good. And once you get kind of in the swing of it, you start binge watching episode after episode after episode now, since it's there on streaming.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I was one of those original people that was like, oh no, I'm not going to watch the animated stuff, and really kind of stayed away with it. But then I got caught up in Clone Wars, and then Rebels came along and I started watching that, and it was just unreal how the story pulled you in, and it was kind of different of how, because you felt really, at least for me, I know I kind of felt like attached to the crew there. It was very emotional. Four seasons packed a lot of emotions, and it definitely was going in in a direction that was just amazing. So obviously we know in Rebels, pretty much the main two characters, Kanan and Ezra. We start off in season 1, you kind of notice that, Kanan's hiding, being a Jedi, Ezra's kind of the orphan out there, and, living by kind of like the way of Aladdin, stealing and, trying to, keep fed, and his parents were obviously passed, or he really didn't know where his parents were. But what was your take, and also for all you out there as well, what was your take on this when you first got introduced to these two characters?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the onset, I liked Kanan. I thought he was a good character. I kind of liked his more kind of loner, almost stereotypical, almost kind of like a smuggler, even though it wasn't a smuggler, but that sort of like rogue sort of character. Ezra, I think, and probably intentionally so, started off like, it's just this kind of bratty kid now we have to take care of. And I was like, I'm not people are, again, I'm catching up after the fact, but a lot of people are like, oh, I really like Ezra. He's a great character. And I'm like, sure, he must get better, because starting off I wasn't quite sure about Ezra, but I think as the first season progressed and get into the later seasons, you really start to see that bond between Kanan and Ezra, and it's really sort of the foundation of the entire series. So yeah, I mean, overall the characters definitely started to grow on me.
Yeah, and at first, like in some of the Star Wars things, like Ezra was kind of like that annoying little little punk that, you're like, what's this leading into? But then you realize that there was something about him, kind of like in every, Star Wars, story arc. And, he was strong with the Force. Kanan, put him through a different task, with the holocron, and if, he was going to find it, and then he was able to open it. But that's what I thought was pretty amazing when we go into Rebels, and it starts off because to me, Ezra's already powerful and he doesn't even know it. Kind of like a Rey, Luke, it took him a bit, and Luke kept giving up on himself. And but Ezra was somebody who, once he started realizing he had these powers, he kind of went with them right away. I mean,
Yeah, and I will say too, I mean, kind of comparing it to Rey and Luke and, other series out there, within the Clone Wars series, we already knew Obi-Wan, Anakin, they were already basically fully trained Jedi, and even Ahsoka to a degree, there wasn't a lot of training per se, it was just her kind of maturing as,
yeah,
a character, age-wise and growing up. With Luke, we got a very short Dagobah scene. With Rey, we got a very short, sort of training montage thing with Leia. I think with Ezra and Kanan, this is one of the first times we actually got to see really that sort of discovering force sensitivity, training,
yeah,
the kind of full growth progression of a Jedi. Where in
yeah,
other in part of when the films, I get it because it's a small 2 hour movie, so you can't spend all 2 hours training the Jedi. So that's where I think in this series, it being multiple episodes long, you get kind of little hints at how does Kanan train Ezra to sort of grasp onto those powers and use them.
yeah. And then, and throughout all this, obviously, the Ghost Crew was put together so well. I mean, it was somebody that you really didn't get annoyed with them throughout the whole series. You were wanting to know what was going to happen when those episodes ended. See, Travis, you started at a good time where you can actually binge through it. Like when I
Yeah, I don't have
when I watched,
to
I had
wait.
to wait each week, and I still remember people messaging me after like the episode was over. Oh my God, can you believe what happened? But I mean, the Ghost Crew. I mean, how this was a great team. I mean, you have Chopper, which is probably one of my top 3 droids now. Which I know I'm probably gonna get some slack for this, but obviously I'm gonna go K2SO as my first. Then I'm gonna go Chopper, then R2. Sorry, people, I put R2 down number 3. But Hera, Zeb, Sabine. I mean, this is a great team. But what I really like about it is how we kind of went. And I don't know your take on this. How we have a Mandalorian, a Jedi, and then people that they kind of brought in that even Hera knew she was working with the Resistance, but really wasn't giving everybody else the idea of what they were going to, the way she kind of kept, the fulcrum
Mhm.
Ahsoka away from them and stuff. I mean, what were your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the characters within the crew I grew to really like, and I think it's interesting too because each individual character has their own reasons, I guess, for being there. Like they've all individually been affected
Yeah,
by the Empire in some way, and that's kind of, I guess, the sort of the mesh that brought them all together. And then they each had their own skill sets. You had Zeb the muscle, you had Sabine kind of the technical
yeah,
kind of person. So each person had sort of their role to fill, and it was a really well constructed team from that perspective. But then just the characters all interplayed well together from a development standpoint.
yeah. And they meshed really well. The characters worked together well. And it was just something that I enjoyed watching all the time. And again, everybody, if you have any questions or want to comment while you're out there, please feel free to. I want to say thanks, Alex, for joining us tonight. Also, another Alex for joining us tonight, and Courtney as well. Thanks for watching and tuning into our show. But then what was really awesome about Rebels is they did a great job tying in some of the older characters with new characters.
Hmm.
So one of the things that we really got introduced to real quick, obviously for people who watched the Clone Wars, knew that Tarkin was part of, you know, the Rebel Alliance, and then he obviously turned, and we had some new characters that was introduced. Obviously, the Grand Inquisitor and our Inquisitors. Now, I thought it was really interesting. I really, at this point, started liking the Inquisitors just about more than the Sith because I thought that they have really kind of a cool backstory, and
Hmm.
especially when you see more about the Grand Inquisitor. But when we see this and we know that Tarkin's involved in stuff, I mean, how cool is that? And to kind of see the tie-ins from the old, but also bringing in the new with him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job. I think, we've talked about this, whether it's Obi-Wan or other series that start to play in that space between prequels and A New Hope, that all the characters are still alive. So it makes it easy to sometimes overdo it, the fan service, and bring in too many cameos. And it's like,
Yeah,
you're kind of just shoehorning these characters in just for the nostalgia factor. They don't really have a part to play. But I think in this series, they did a good job.
oh,
Tarkin shows up. I think we have a couple of people we'll talk about that show up. And it's like each time they show up, it's like you get excited as a fan because you're like, oh, I know that character. I have some background, some context, but they introduce him in such a way that it makes sense for the story. They didn't just throw Tarkin in just because, oh, we want a bad guy Tarkin to show up or this
yeah.
other fan favorite character for no reason just to show up in an episode.
Yeah, and I mean, this Tarkin is just that ruthless guy. I mean,
Hmm.
he become one of my favorite villains very easily, just because he was just so ruthless and just really didn't care about anything except for destroying the rebels.
Yeah, and I was
Um,
curious to see how they would, how he would react to, Jedi. And I know a couple of the episodes in season one he talks about because we know from the Clone Wars he personally, saw the Jedi in action and was with
yeah,
them. So he knows they exist. It's not like some of these other people that are like, "Oh, I've heard stories of the Jedi," but they're not really like, no, he knows firsthand that they're legit. He was with them in the Clone Wars. So
yeah.
his kind of, making comments to, having dealt with the Jedi in the past and how he dislikes them and wants them to not be around because it brings hope to the rebellion and things of that nature.
And also to tie in a little bit of Obi-Wan, where I don't want to jump off the subject too much, but what really makes this interesting is we're looking at a time frame from about 4 years from the start of Obi-Wan to the start of Rebels.
Hmm.
So obviously we know the Grand Inquisitor's in there, but I mean, there's a possibility we're going to see another, CGI Tarkin because he's still around at that time.
Hmm.
So I mean, that kind of shows that there's reasons why they're building Tarkin in with all these, things, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in like the Death Star and the Tie Fighters and stuff here in a little while. But I just think that's interesting. They did a great job with that, and the Inquisitors were definitely a fun bunch to get around with. But what was really awesome about Rebels, like I said, was how they brought in older characters, and of course, one character they brought in very early in the season definitely a fan favorite. Voiced by good old Billy D. Williams, the Colt 45 man himself. Lando Calrissian. I mean, it was pretty awesome just to kind of see him in there. Of course, he's in his gambling betting ways and stuff,
Hmm.
and I mean, another, this fan service, but it's kind of neat to see how he, play a small part during this time. And we know he's around now during this time,
Hmm.
again with the Kenobi series and some of the other series. I mean, did you like the kind of the throw in with Lando, or do you think it was a little too much, or I mean, was it just enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was right there, just enough between, you know, they need he had a part to play. He was useful in what needed to be done, and obviously they're like, okay, we need like a smuggler, underworld type sort of character. Okay, well, Lando Calrissian is a logical fit to pick for that, and it's a fan favorite character, and a character that we didn't, we've never really gotten, a ton of information, a ton of screen time with,
So Solo, yeah,
yeah, some in Empire, some more in Return, and then made the appearance at the Rise of Skywalker. And he, was a cool, moment to have him in those in the film. So yeah, getting a little bit more Lando in this regard was was a good thing.
yeah, and and it's definitely seeing him in Solo was pretty cool, and then
Hmm.
but what's interesting as we bring up Lando is we've heard a lot about some of the other series coming up. But that is one series that we have really not heard any other updates about, which I thought is kind of interesting. Even when he was
Yeah.
brought up in an interview, there wasn't much said,
Hmm.
about it. So I think it's something to keep an eye on because I'm kind of anxious to see, what's going on there. And
Yeah,
good old
definitely.
Alex here, want to get in here. Rebels is the bridge between the original cast and new continuation. They did a beautiful job with the series. Alex, we agree. I mean, I
Mhm.
honestly think Rebels is one of the best stories out there. But yeah, but going into that with Lando, it'll be interesting to see because it's just weird how that one we have not really heard much more on.
Yeah, I really hope that it happens. I think the fans want it to happen. I think Disney probably realizes that there's, value from a marketing, money making standpoint to do it. So hopefully they can bring it together because, you know, if I can't get a solo sequel in some way, because I think looking back on it, I think the fans would like that. So, maybe if a Lando thing can do well, maybe Disney's like, hey, we can, dip back into some Kira stuff, maybe some more Han Solo stuff, because there's a market for it.
Yep. And also, I want to say, hey, Greg, thanks for tuning in, and Paul as well. Welcome aboard. So when we talk about more of like these returning characters, there was one that had a pretty important impact, especially when you come to the end of the season. And I'm probably skipping ahead a little bit with this, but talk about our little green buddy, Yoda. So it was interesting in this with the Jedi Temple. And actually, I would like to take a pause for a minute and welcome our Gamorrean guard himself, Steven, to the broadcast tonight. Steven, thanks for watching. Also, if you guys are out in New Mexico over by TRG Toys and Collectibles, Steven will be making an appearance there this month for autographs as well. He will also be at ICCC in Nashville. And, he travels all over the place. So make sure you get that Gamorrean guard an autograph and say hi and tell him that Greg and Travis sent him. So, Steven, thanks for watching us tonight. We appreciate you there. But going back into Yoda, I mean, what was really neat about this was, again, this goes back to the powers of Ezra. I mean, this was when Yoda and, the Kyber crystal and everything was going on. When Ezra got his Kyber crystal and stuff, he was able to talk to Yoda. Yoda did his little sparkly thing like Qui-Gon did in the Clone Wars, but Yoda was able to drag him too, and at this time, Yoda's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty interesting how he did that. But what I thought was cool was how Ezra was able to get to the oh my gosh, I just blanked out. World Between Worlds.
Yeah.
And that was our first glance at it, but at that time we really didn't know what it was. I mean, so what's your take on this with Ezra being able to communicate with Yoda already so quick into his training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that was, I guess, kind of unexpected because you never know. You don't want to make a character seem too powerful, and then they still can't do certain things. Like, hey, if they're this powerful, then why are they having issues dealing with this, issue or this bad guy? Because if they're this powerful, they should be able to do all these things. So,
Yeah.
but no, I thought it was a way to again, like I think it was Alex or somebody had mentioned Alex mentioned the bridge between the original, which Yoda was part of, and the future going forward. And so using Ezra to bring Yoda into it, knowing that Yoda's still out there, still trying to keep whatever remnants of the Jedi are out there, still together, still trying to move forward to kind of overcome this, the evil, the dark side that's risen up.
Yeah. And he kind of, when he was talking to Ezra, and he felt the anger, and then we had that same kind of thing, with
Mm-hmm.
Anakin, he felt the anger young and stuff, and Ezra, I mean, but at that point his hands are kind of tied. So luckily Kanan went ahead and kind of took him under his wing and kept training him, because then, I mean, the stories just get unreal. And then with Ezra's powers, then we see something new that has been now duplicated a couple times. Especially with Rey, with the powers, with kind of like this animal communication and healing and stuff like that. Now we didn't see the healing with Ezra, but we did see how he was able to connect with nature and the animals through the Force. So this I thought was interesting, and honestly, it threw me off for a little bit because I'm like, why are they showing this? And then obviously when we get to the end of season 4, we know why. But we see this a couple times. I mean, what were your thoughts on this when he used these animals to attack the Inquisitor?
Yeah, I think that was cool. Like you said, we saw a little bit of kind of with animals in the prequel series. Obi-Wan, I think, worked with that lizard thing that he rode. Anakin, if I remember, I think it was Anakin, I think, kind of subdued one of the Acklays or something in that Genoshan fighting pit. So we knew that, hey, okay, again, the force is everywhere. What binds us together, all that sort of stuff. But I think seeing a little more explanation of how Kanan kind of described it to Ezra, that the force is everywhere and you can use it to control animals, and then seeing Ezra actually use that a few times
Yeah.
early on, and then obviously much later in the series with the bigger payoff was a pretty cool to kind of see like a newer force power that we knew was out there, but hadn't really seen it used or really explained too much and how it worked.
Oh yeah, and then we got a couple here. Facebook user, sorry, I don't know who you are. You can put in there and put a comment if you want, so we know who you are, so we can credit you for your comments. But we also just got 2 back to back on Hondo. Obviously, Hondo was a great character. Everyone loves our little space pirate there. So, but during all this, we had another character that is definitely making things very interesting through Rebels, and we actually got her again in the Clone Wars, and that's Ahsoka. So, and I just knocked Jar Jar over, so sorry, Jar Jar. So Ahsoka, the Fulcrum. It was interesting to see how she was back in the picture again. I know everybody went crazy when she was back. I mean, Ahsoka's probably one of the most popular characters now in Star Wars. I mean, you can't argue it. How awesome was that when you realized that the Fulcrum was Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah, that was a really cool moment. They definitely didn't let on or give away any hints that, hey, that's who it was going to be. And again, at that time, this was all pre season 7
Yeah,
of Clone Wars. So the last we knew of Ahsoka was she got offered to, come back to the temple by Anakin, and she turned her back and walked away from the Jedi.
yep,
So we have no idea. Did she make it through Order 66 at the time? Was she ever going to come back? They're just going to like write that character off into oblivion. So her climbing down that ladder and making the big reveal that she's still out there and kind of actively involved in the
yeah,
rebellion was a really cool moment for the character for sure.
yeah, and it was just definitely. I think that was the moment where it really her character took that turn for popularity. I mean, she was already popular during the Clone Wars, but then you get her in the Rebels, and you realize what kind of impact that she had during this time. And
Mhm.
what's going to be really interesting now is when we get the Ahsoka series. Um, when that happens, are we going to like? I just want more. We still got gaps. So I just want more of what Ahsoka has brought to the table, and then how she became the Fulcrum, and how all that came about after she kind of went away. Obviously, we know now a little bit with the end of season 7 of the Clone Wars, but there's still just more I want. I mean, she's just so powerful and everything. But then season 7 of the Clone Wars is like literally like flowing everything into Rebels as well,
Mhm.
because then this comment was brought up. First of all, I want to say whoever Cody, I'm guessing this is you, Jar Jar. Yes, I want to see Jar Jar back. No, he doesn't deserve to get knocked over. I know what you're saying. No, Jar Jar needs to come back. Um, Definitely awesome. He just read a novel, established her for Rebels really early. And then I was more shocked that she was still involved with the rebellion after she left the order and all. And it's true, we were shocked because we didn't have Clone Wars season 7 yet um, to go on to this and this
Mhm.
Rebels as well. And just real quick, I want to say hey to Kevin and Kevin who both tuned in to watch. Thank you again for watching us tonight. But then another character from season 7 of the Clone Wars made a return that kind of just came out of nowhere. And it was just awesome because again, one of my favorite Siths, if he short time was a Sith, but obviously Darth Maul. We had this in the comments earlier. Um, so Ezra meets Maul. Of course, Ezra I think believe was going by his name Jabba the Hutt when he met Maul, and then finally gave him his name. But what kind of impact and I mean, what did you think when all of a sudden Maul is in that Sith temple with everybody?
Yeah, I mean, that was a cool moment just again because this was pre season 7 of Clone Wars. So again, we didn't really know, what's the deal with Maul? What happened to him? Is he still out there? What's going on?
Yeah,
So to see, hey, yep, he's still out there. Um, Again, I think it's even again more character development for Maul, for a character that had, you know, maybe what four or five words of dialogue in the prequel and Phantom Menace when he showed up. He had quite the story arc since then through Clone
yeah,
Wars and then in Rebels. So that's cool because he's a really cool character. And I think from an overall, just even Ezra, development standpoint,
Yep.
him sort of nudging Ezra, not necessarily full on to the dark side, but showing him that, hey, there is power, there is things there on the dark side that you could potentially use. As
Yep.
we know, he recovers the holocron, taps into it, starts to blur the lines between the light and the dark. So again, it was done in a cool way. The fact that it's a cool character that everybody likes,
Yep.
but it served a purpose to the greater story and Ezra in particular. So it wasn't just shoehorned in for fan service. It had a purpose.
Yeah, and then what I thought was really interesting about this, a few years ago, I actually got to sit down with Taylor Gray, who voiced Ezra, and I talked to him a bit about, was there ever a time that Ezra was going to turn to the dark side? And he actually said it was talked about and stuff, but he really didn't know as the season went because Dave Filoni kind of hid everything from him. They didn't know really what was going on until they got the script and each script and stuff. So I thought that was interesting that it was thought about because I mean, by the end of this season, when Ezra gets that holocron, I mean it's looking like he's getting ready to turn. But that's where we'll talk a little bit more about his powers again, because he's done stuff that we have not seen any other Jedi in the Star Wars, the new canon do. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, he's opened the Sith holocron, he's opened the regular holocron, he's gone
Mhm.
between the world between worlds. I mean, he's done so much that Luke. I mean, what's Luke done really? He blew up a Death Star. He started a school. He lost Baby Yoda. He couldn't even keep him as a Jedi. So I mean, sorry, Luke, but I mean, obviously I'm joking, people. But I mean, it's just Ezra has already shown again so much more power than anything we've seen. And really, the only other person that's been close to that's Rey. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know. I mean, do you agree with that? And all you out there as well? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from overall, you know, power perspective, definitely was doing a lot of things that we hadn't seen others do. Now, was that a symptom of the fact that they had the medium of animated? That opens up some avenues. There's certain things you can do in animation that you can't do necessarily in live action.
No.
You have more episodes, there's like 15 episodes per season, so there's more time to develop and more time to show some of those things. Because at the end of the day, I'm sure when it comes down to true, midichlorian count or whatever you want to call it, I'm sure the Skywalker family is probably still outranking Ezra. But yeah, I think Ezra, and maybe again, it's part of the Sith holocron, seeing the dark side abilities and the light side abilities and kind of blending the best of both worlds in a way has kind of helped give him some additional powers that others wouldn't have been able to, especially under the tutelage of the old Jedi Order. I'm sure the old
Yeah.
Jedi Order was fairly rigid in their
Yeah.
training, and we only show you certain things we want you to know about. We don't let you know about this other stuff we don't want you to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and then Ashley, thanks for tuning in as well. And then Justin Lee finally tuned in tonight. Usually he's in here chopping away. And of course, obviously, you guys can't see his comments, but he did bring up again Dash Rendar. Ezra couldn't be Dash Rendar. I was waiting for one of those comments tonight. But yeah, I mean, just the power that he had, and just as it keeps growing in there, and we'll get into that more. But then one of the greatest. I don't know if it's one of the greatest. It's pretty damn awesome. All right. So after the fight with the Inquisitors, Maul helps kill the Inquisitors. Kanan loses his vision. We're going through so much emotions, and then all of a sudden, here comes Darth Vader, top of a TIE fighter, to just bring havoc, and that's when things get really awesome in Rebels. And obviously, the fight between Ahsoka. Now, I will say the fight between the Inquisitors, and Ezra, Kanan, and Ahsoka was pretty intense and pretty good. But then
Mhm.
you have the old master and apprentice when Ahsoka's feelings come true and she realized who it is. I mean, how amazing was this part of the episode?
Yeah, I mean, really, like you said, that last episode of the second season was like nonstop, just really cool moment after cool moment after cool moment. Visually, action sequence wise, the fight of the Inquisitors against Ahsoka, Kanan, Maul, Ezra was just really well done. Cool to watch.
Yeah.
From an emotional impact, though, yeah, I mean, Ahsoka fighting Vader, and some of the lines of dialogue, you can really see sort of the conflict that Ahsoka didn't want to believe that Anakin had turned
Yeah.
and become Vader, and in the moment too, briefly when Ahsoka knocks off part of his helmet, you can see Anakin's face,
Yeah.
exposed, and you hear kind of his regular voice, not the
Yeah.
synthesized deep James Earl Jones Vader voice saying like Ahsoka. You almost get like for a brief moment like Anakin kind of fighting the Darth, the Anakin versus Darth Vader sort of persona fighting against each other, all seeing Ahsoka and like really struggling with it, but then again turns to he's full on Darth Vader dark side now. And there's no
Yeah.
at that time no redemption yet for him.
Yep. The I am no Jedi, and it's just,
Hmm.
I mean, right now, like, it's unreal how, I mean, this series has been out for a while, and everyone's probably gonna laugh at this, but like, I'm more like, I have goosebumps just thinking about it. It was just, and just think, people, if you haven't seen Rebels, or like way behind, just really, we haven't. We're still kind of talking season one.
Yeah, this
We're
is
going in to see. I mean, there could be so much more. We're gonna shorten some of it here, but I mean, it's just unreal. Like, this is how much stories that we got just from one season.
hmm
I mean, between Maul, Vader, Tarkin, Thrawn's coming up. We have so much. And again, the great scene. And what's really interesting about this is we're going to see it again, towards the end in the World Between Worlds, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I'm still wondering if that'll ever come back into play, as well.
hmm
Now, I'm going to be sorry. This picture looked good when I put it on here, but it got kind of blurry because this also leads in, and there's a reason why I did it. So I'm going to put it up real quick. People, y'all can laugh when you see how blurry it is, but you're going to know what I'm talking about here in a second. So Agent Callus and Zeb. Again, I apologize for the blurriness on there. We'll go ahead and take that off right now. But there's a reason why that story was shown. Um, First of all, Callus was, I mean, he hated the rebels. I mean, when he first saw the Jedi, he was ready to go and doing everything. And then, him and Zeb meet up, and next thing later down the road, we find out that Callus is now a Fulcrum. So
hmm
did you expect that at all? I mean, here's a guy who helped terminate Zeb's people. Well, Zeb thought was all terminated. And then all of a
hmm
sudden, bam, he's now helping, the rebels.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a pretty drastic change of course because, like you said from the get go, he was pretty high up there with like the Inquisitor and working with Vader and drawing a blank now Tarkin to find the rebels, exterminate the rebels. I mean, he seemed pretty much like he's all in, bleeds 100% Empire. So I think it was definitely a big shift, but like you said, there was reasons why they had that particular moment with him and Zeb and start to kind of question, hey, is the Empire really all it's cracked up to be? Is there, some actual, downsides to what's going on here and, see kind of a different perspective on things.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, it is a really interesting turn of events throughout the rest of the episodes, especially when, Thrawn finally caught on, and all that went down. But
Mhm.
what I also thought was interesting, and this was kind of interesting a little bit because there were some rumors out there that we'll see, issues with a young, Leia possibly pop up in Obi-Wan with something happening with her being kidnapped or something. We don't know. They're all rumors, but they're always fun to watch to see what, comes true or not. But obviously Leia, I mean, has been I mean, Bail Organa has got her working. There must be no child labor laws on Alderaan. But I mean, we even get a Leia for a little bit, in Rebels, which was I thought was pretty cool. Seeing what she did and how she helped the rebellion and how she had to keep things hidden,
Mhm.
as well. So I mean, that was kind of neat on there. I mean, I was not expecting her to show up, and I mean, we didn't get her a lot, but that was, I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, what do you think on that, Travis, with
Mhm.
Leia making
Yeah,
this
I mean, again, I think it's always cool to see characters from the original series that they're out there and sort of getting like a little glimpse of, hey, what's going on? 'Cause, I mean, I think we knew um, from you know the way the Clone Wars ended and the way the prequel movies ended and how A New Hope starts with Leia Organa involved in it, that okay, Bail Organa, Alderaan, they're going to be involved in the rebellion in some way, shape, or form. So I think
Yep.
getting those like little nuggets of information and just enough to kind of point out that hey, we know they're out there, here's what they're doing, but not focusing too much on the old characters and kind of detracting or pulling away from the main story that you want to tell with Ezra and the rest of the crew.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just it was neat to see that little appearance on there. And I'm going to bring this comment back up again because I mean, this is really. I mean, anybody who has been following Rebels and the Clone Wars. I mean, it seems like everything's coming up. You know, the future of Star Wars seems like it's going to pull a bunch from Rebels, and it has. I mean, if you take it back and look at what all was introduced, and also with the Clone Wars, with Ahsoka, now she's getting her own series. You know, we still know that Sabine's out there somewhere. We still know that Hera's out there somewhere. We still know that her son's out there somewhere. You know, so there's so much more that we're going to see. I think with Rebels and in some of these future series, and I'm glad. You know, I was hesitant at first with you know, some of this going to animated to live action, but or animation to live action, but at the same time, it's actually been pretty good. I know a lot of people have been complaining about how the Grand Inquisitor looks and stuff. Give it a chance, people. You know, they can't be all perfect, and just remember, it's a story. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it on that too. I mean, at the at the end of the day, you know, I don't care if, to me personally at least, the Inquisitor could have been, you know, completely not even close to looking right, but if it's a good story, it's, you know, well acted, dialogue, everything's good and I enjoy it. I don't really care if, you know, the Inquisitor looks like the Inquisitor from the animated series. I mean, we know the lightsabers in Rebels don't look like the lightsabers in live action. They're it doesn't necessarily always have to translate
well,
100% like you expect
I mean, if
to
you're
look
going
from
to
a
about
drawn
that,
a
then you
drawn
might as well
cartoon.
complain about uh, uh, Count Dooku. You know, the
Yeah,
Yoda that was pulled up here
Count
with the
Dooku's
square.
face is Dooku's face is not, you know, 5 feet long, and you know his beard and Obi-Wan's beard's not flat like, and you know, come on, it's a cartoon versus live action. It's going to be a little bit different.
So the next character we're going to talk about, obviously, you know, was very popular in the, you know, expanded universe world. And then we finally get him into the canon world as well. And of course, that's Grand Admiral Thrawn. Um, Probably one of the best strategic characters, or, you know, George Bush used to say strategery. Uh, but just his relentless way that he went at things. And then also, too, like he knew when he was beat. He also wanted him to win some battles as well to help, you know, to figure things out and see how things play. I mean, how cool was this character when he was
Mhm.
actually finally introduced into the Star Wars world again?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Thrawn is a really cool character, and they did a really good job with him too. Because I think you know, the issue you potentially could have run into is okay, we have our main story, the Ghost Crew, and all of that. We can't have them constantly beating and getting the best of Thrawn because Thrawn has a reputation from the books and when he was introduced of, you know, a brilliant now I can't even say it, a brilliant tactician. We'll go with tactician
you got
instead of
strategic stuff
strategy.
in your head.
Yeah, I do. So, you know, so I think they did a good job of him showing like, no, he actually is really good. And sometimes when he would get, you know, defeated or beat, it was kind of from things he couldn't really control. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't his fault that you know, the Imperials lost a battle or something because it was
yeah,
something that something else factored into it.
yeah. Or was somebody not like one of his officers not listening to him,
Hmm.
and things like that. So that played in a rock. But you know, you know, and that's the thing too, is he's still out there. I mean, we know Thrawn's out there, obviously, in the Mandalorian. We know that Ahsoka was looking for him. We know that he's still out there somewhere, which obviously means that Ezra's still out there somewhere. So we've got a lot of great stuff to look, excuse me, look forward to.
Hmm.
Um, but what I think is interesting, and what I really like, my favorite thing about Thrawn was how he looked at art and how he like pieced everything together. It wasn't just, you know, a war with him. It was about learning about the cultures of his enemies and what he needed to do to defeat them, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely kind of broke the mold from traditional, a big bad evil general tries to do something, makes big blunder, rebels win. It's like, nope, this guy had much more character development to him again because we had the time to invest in multiple episodes and different things for him and really kind of round out the character.
Yeah. So the next part we're going to talk about was probably again one of the greatest, probably one of the shortest lightsaber battles, other than when Palpatine took out Fisto and everybody else against good old Mace Windu. But obviously, Maul, Obi-Wan face off again. Um, it was just unreal that Maul's hatred was so bad that he stayed alive because he wanted to kill Obi-Wan, fight Obi-Wan again.
Hmm.
But as we learned, Maul really may not have been as bad as we thought, especially at the end of season 7 of the Clone Wars. Because one thing that people don't realize is the Sith may have been evil, but they never lied. I mean, Maul told, they straight up tell people, this is the way, join the dark side. This is what you're going to see. I mean,
Hmm.
Maul, if you think in season 7 of the Clone Wars, told Ahsoka Anakin was being groomed. She didn't want to believe it. Maul here, once he realized why Obi-Wan was there, he even asked, was he the chosen one? And that's when we see little Luke running across the thing and everything. But like, this scene was amazing. This is
Hmm.
where Ezra gets to meet Obi-Wan, briefly. I mean, what I mean, like my brain's still like kind of like it's brand new, but I mean, how great was this moment?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it sort of brings Darth Maul full circle. Introduced, starts off with Obi-Wan and ends with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Um, and to your point too, I think with seeing what happens in the Clone Wars with Palpatine and Savage and all this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
you start to feel like, okay, yeah, I don't know if you necessarily feel sorry for Darth Maul, but kind of in a way you do. You start to say you sympathize maybe with Maul and what happened to him and how he was really, talks about, how he was basically taken and raised up to be this. And as soon as his, use was over, cast aside, was
Yeah.
always just sort of a tool for Palpatine. And, that hatred for Obi-Wan, everything that kind of happened to him, you kind of in a way, you're like, yeah, I'd probably be pissed off too if that was me and all this stuff happened to me, even though you're supposed to be like the bad guy in this, but you start to, it's not a one-dimensional,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan good, Darth Maul bad. It's like, no, Darth or Maul at this point, Maul is a much more nuanced character than you think from the his initial appearance.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, again, it was just like we got our full, like you said, the full circle of Maul. And the storytelling was just unreal. Just when Maul said he the chosen one, and Obi was like, yes, and then Maul died, and Obi-Wan sat there and held him for a while. Like, it was such an emotional scene.
Hmm.
And when we talk about emotional, Rebels probably had some of the most emotional. I can only think of one other thing that was more emotional with me with Star Wars. And that was with when Leia passed away.
Mm.
Um, I mean, obviously she was already, passed, but when that happened and we watched it in Star Wars life, it was still emotional. But we go, we're back to Lothal, Thrawn and this TIE Defender. And this was what I think was kind of interesting for people. If you didn't catch this, and real quick here, Nathan, thanks for watching. Maul is such a tragic character. So much happens with him. He's so involved in so much. I agree.
Hmm.
Um, just unreal that, the way his character is. But what I think is kind of cool about Rebels, and then when we talk about emotional, when we're getting into things, is there's two things that's going on right now that Tarkin's planning on. There is the TIE Defender project, and then Stardust, which is the Death Star. Get that mentioned in there because he talks to Thrawn about, I need you to present your idea to the TIE Defenders to the Emperor, because of Krennic's Death Star plans. Well, obviously, the TIE Defender project gets a huge kick in the butt when the rebels go there and they blow up, the fuel cells. Well, actually, they don't blow up the fuel cells. Price does, and then it just goes from there. But everybody's getting ready because what I'm getting ready to put up on the screen is probably one of the other most emotional Star Wars moments, and that is when you know Kanan sacrifices himself um, for everybody, and it was just unreal. Like just to see it, and he gets his vision back, his eyes come back before he dies.
Mhm.
I mean, this. I mean, as you can tell, like I'm sitting there thinking about it. It's just like, dang, man, this really hit hard. This is like this Jedi just gave himself up, gave his life for everybody else. Um, and it was kind of a turning point that helped the rebels, but at the same time looked like it was going to defeat them because of how impactful this was.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, how like I mean, were you expecting the death of Kanan? Like this was something that just, and also when I talked to Tyler Gray real quick, he said that there wasn't a dry eye in the recording booth when this happened as well. So I
Mhm.
thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where, especially knowing the time period this takes place and knowing that there's no Kanan with the Rebel Alliance and A New Hope, there's no Ezra, like these characters don't show up, you almost kind of like Rogue One style, you wonder, okay, how are they going to either explain away that they rode off into the sunset and weren't involved in the original trilogy movies, or what happens to them. So
Yeah.
I think it wasn't necessarily a big shock. I mean, as soon as Kanan was like, "Yep, I'm a Jedi," and you're like, "Okay, well, there are no Jedi at the time except Obi-Wan, and then trains Luke. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen to Kanan?" See, kind of in the back of your mind, I always thought like, "Okay, he's probably going to die." But for them, with the audience potentially expecting that to eventually happen, but then to still make it be such a big emotional impact and moment is just really,
Yeah.
excellent storytelling. It's almost again, if I use Rogue One as an example, like, okay, we figured something's going to happen to these people. And then the last, 15 minutes of that movie when everybody starts, sacrificing themselves to steal the Death Star plans, like
Yeah.
this is all emotional, impactful sort of stuff, even though we kind of all saw it coming. So it's just again, hats off to the writers and directors and stuff that were able to tell that story and make that
Yeah.
such an impactful moment.
Yeah, it was just I mean, it was just unreal. Like I still remember, and actually I think Nathaniel and a couple others that are watching, and I think we were messaging each other as this was going on. And it was unreal. Like it was just one of those moments that you will remember for Star Wars because you grew like attached to Kanan.
Mhm.
You kind of felt like this is a new hope kind of for us getting into Ezra, training him as well. Um, but then we had to bring that emotion back again, and we're going to skip forward a little bit. Again, we talked about the world between worlds, and I'm sorry I brought up the wrong picture there. But Ezra, goes back in the world between worlds and saves Ahsoka from. I know Nate. Sorry, he said, "Oh, please call me Nate." Um, I see it and I just put it up there. It's called reading the prompts. but but she goes in. He goes in there and pulls Ahsoka out and saves her from Vader. So, I mean, we don't know. I mean, did she die? During that battle when the Sith Temple was collapsing. Did she get out? But she did kind of. I think she did walk away at that point. Um, what all happened there? But then Ezra gets the idea like, well, I can save Kanan now.
Hmm.
And she has to kind of prevent everything. But the world between worlds, it was just interesting to see again that power from Ezra as he was able to, you know, again another Clone Wars reference, the son, the father, and the daughter, the Mortis gods, was able to change the rocks and open the gate and everything. I mean, just the power that Ezra has for doing this. I mean, it's just to me is unreal as a young Jedi as he was.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you mentioned earlier within the live action and the new stuff coming up, are we ever going to get more of the world between worlds sort of thing? Because it's one of those areas you have to be really, I think, cautious with
Yeah,
because you could use that to like, you know, change anything. Like,
pretty
oh,
much Marvel. What if? Maybe.
yeah, it becomes like, oh, well, let's just go to the world between worlds and we'll prevent the sequel trilogy from occurring. We'll go to the war between worlds and prevent. It's like it's kind
Now,
of one of those real razor edge sort of things. You can't rely on it too much to try to retcon or really mess with stuff. It's got to be used
I
very
would be up for it
sparingly.
if they did one where Jar Jar actually was the Sith Lord, which would be pretty awesome.
There you go.
There, so, but yeah, I mean, we see that power, and then we're seeing more of Ezra, and then he, after Kane's death, he pretty much becomes kind of like a Jedi the way Luke did. His master passed away. Ezra knew what needed to be done, and that's when we get where they go to the fall, they set up everything, and Ezra kind of already knew what the plan was, but didn't let anyone else know until the last minute. And then we just see the scene that, again, is kind of heartbreaking because, again, sorry for the blurry picture, guys. It looked better before I put it into the screen. But Ezra and Thrawn, they pull in and I forgot what they're called, so I'm sorry. Those whale type space creatures.
Oh, yeah.
And they pull them into hyperspace, and we don't know where they went. Thrawn's defeated, everything's going. And from there it was kind of like, wow, it's over. And then we get the flashback scene kind of, and then we see Sabine and Ahsoka meet back up again, and we know that they're going to go look for Ezra. I mean, the ending of Rebels is what, again, as we talked about earlier with the comment of things getting pulled from this series, there's so much that we want more of. We learned Rex was at the Battle of Endor. We know that Sabine is looking for Ezra with Ahsoka. We know that Zeb and Kallus are hanging out together now. It's just it's unreal what this series has done for Star Wars. And it has made us us older fans, like with me, growing up with the original trilogy, trying not to date myself too much, but it gave me a new hope of what we're getting, and a lot of people are saying, oh, I don't like some of this stuff. I mean, it's Star Wars, people. Use your imaginations, have fun. But I mean, what kind of impact do you feel that these 4 seasons had for Star Wars?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time, there wasn't really any context for what its impact would be because it was over and it was like, okay. But then knowing that, going back to Clone Wars season 7, that had an impact because the stuff with Maul and Ahsoka kind of growing, and it kind of helped explain her growth as a character to why she would still be involved in trying to help people in the rebellion. With now Ahsoka in the live action, and references to Thrawn and Ezra and Sabine. So yeah, I mean, I think at the time nobody realized, but then now since it did leave things so open with like all these really great characters that have great stories and stories that are still yet to be told.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the animation stuff is that you can do so much more in so little time in a way, because I mean you can get you don't have live action that you're having to make everybody act out the scenes and stuff like that, like like the Siege on Mandalore. There's like the Clone Wars, the way season 7 kind of, I mean, season 7 of the Clone Wars, and that'll probably be one of our next topics, hint, was just unreal. Like it really, and then when it took us back through Order 66, and like it actually queued up moments and sounds from it and everything. I mean, Dave Filoni is genius. I don't, other than Baby Yoda, everything else he's done has been perfect. Sorry, people, just kidding.
Yeah, but I mean, we even now as far as like current animation goes with the Bad Batch, you had a reference to Kanan in the start of the Bad Batch. Like it showed what happened to his master and how he was kind of allowed to survive Order 66 sort of thanks to the Bad Batch. You've got Finnick making an appearance there after making an appearance in Mandalorian. So we've talked about this several times. I think they're definitely going all in sort of the Marvel, it's all connected sort of route. And it's really cool to see that they're not just creating new stuff to connect. The new stuff they're creating still connects back to the old stuff that was created previously that we didn't know was going to be connected.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's just unreal how some of these little things, like even like Boba Fett.
Mhm.
We found out that he has technically a clone sister. Which still I'm wondering where that's going to go. That's a whole nother story that
Mhm.
I'm kind of interested to see where it's going to go. But I mean, we got just think we got Mandalorian season 3 coming up. We know Sabine's out there, Bo-Katan. We've got, right now Mando is technically the ruler of Mandalore with the Darksaber. So then you got the armorer who casted him aside, but now who will probably be a separate Mandalorian. Like we have all these new Mandalorian clans. I have a
Mhm.
strange feeling that Boba Fett is going to team up with Mando. I think that's what the whole book of Boba Fett was kind of getting towards. Um, and then who knows what robotic Cobb Vanth will be when he's out of the back of the tank.
That's right, good way.
But
Yeah.
I'll save the Boba Fett right here. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much tying together. And again, like, I mean, you just saw how meaningful Rebels is. I mean, we're just about into an hour into the show, and really most of it was talked about season 1, and we kind of blew through the rest of the seasons just so we didn't go for 4 hours tonight. We probably
Mhm.
could have done an hour a season at least. So it is great getting all that content, and I'm thankful for it, and I know a lot of you out there are thankful for it as well.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know. Again, we got Obi-Wan coming up, right? On the 27th. Yeah,
Mhm.
because
Yep,
and then 2
27th.
episodes are coming out then. Andor coming up. The Bad Batch still coming up. Supposedly Ahsoka. I mean, we have
Yeah,
a
I mean, especially too when you think about Andor. I mean, Andor's gonna take place pre Rogue One, obviously. So
yeah.
there's, you know, the
There's
the Spectre team is out there somewhere. Are they gonna be
yeah.
referenced at all? Fulcrum, is that gonna be referenced at all? I mean, again, I think they're doing an excellent job so far of new characters, new stories, but then still tying back and connecting to the old things that the fans really liked. And they're not overdoing it to where it's just like, oh, we're gonna create new stuff just to show all the old characters people really like. It's no, we're gonna progress, do something new, but just enough of a tie back to keep it all feeling like Star Wars.
Yep. And and obviously, Star Wars right now we're in a big couple months for Star Wars. Everybody knows Star Wars celebrations around the corner. Where that's I'm excited for it. And what I think is interesting is, and Nate said, Obi-Wan during celebration has me excited. To me, I think they're going to do something for the fans at Celebration for this series. I have a strange feeling that's why they pushed it back. So I'm anxious to see what will happen because I know they had special stuff for us for the Mandalorian at Celebration. We got to see the trailer for the Rise of Sky. I mean, it's just so much that like I'm just cannot wait for Celebration.
Mhm.
It'll be definitely a good time there as well. So, and we will, hopefully be coming at you live at Celebration quite a bit out there. I know Travis finally got a ticket, so it was good to see that he'll be coming out there. And it's just going to be a blast. If you haven't been to Celebration, go. I don't know how many more I'll make it to, but this is definitely I'm excited for this year because we got a lot of content coming our way as well. So with that, a couple other things. Got some exciting news. I should be seeing the artist proofs of our charity mug soon. I should be talking with him this week and seeing a couple options. On one note, though, we might be pushing back the silent auction a little bit. Right now, we're still trying to get some more donations. We want to make sure that we have enough that we can, raise enough money for Mission 22. So we might be pushing that back a little bit more on that. Just wanted to put that out there for people as well. We will be doing the McDonald House charity event where we'll be doing Christmas in July, doing a toy drive. We'll be doing that at Buy Me Toys in Mishawaka, where we're going to try to stuff my truck full of toys. And maybe we'll get a couple trucks out there. Who knows what we can get. But all those toys will go to the Ronald McDonald House so that during Christmas time, the kids there can have toys and the families that are there, with their children as well. So I'm excited some of the community service stuff that we do and the charity stuff that we do as well. Again, the show is brought to us. Thank you for TRG Toys and Collectibles. Got to throw you out there again. You can see the website right down there somewhere. Scrolling across. They're a sponsor for our show. Again, make sure you check out our stories also at the #show.com. Travis and I try to put some interesting articles out there. I know that today was an interesting one. Daisy really coming back to social media. Some of the comments still blow me away of what some of the
So
fandom
everybody,
has gone to.
everybody, be
Uh,
nice. Don't bully people
yeah,
on
I just don't
social
get it.
media. It's
I don't get it.
not
Like
needed.
Star Wars, let it go, people. It was that prequel, the sequels are over now. Just let it go, people. Let it go.
And even if you
Um,
don't, if you don't like something, that was just their job to play that character. She's not actually Rey,
yeah,
so
I don't know.
find the medium between real life and fantasy, please.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. People just love one another. Everybody love everyone. Is that what Jackie Moon said? And Semi Pro. So just go out there, guys. Be safe. I know we cannot wait to see you at Celebration. Also, we will be at ICCC at the end of the month. Pretty excited about that one as well. Some big names there. Ashley. Wow, blanked out. Anthony Daniels,
Mhm.
McDermott. A great cast as well. Again, I want to thank our Grimorian guard, Steven, that chimed in and watched us a little bit tonight. You guys are not familiar, he was a Grimorian guard in Return of the Jedi. And everybody who watched tonight, thank you for putting up with us for an hour and listening to us talk about our fandom and stuff that we love. We try to bring you a show with no drama and really we're just two guys that just love Star Wars. So with that, we also, our next show will possibly have a couple special artist guests again. Working on that right now. And other than that, Travis, you got anything else for tonight?
No, just again, thanks to everybody that's tuning in. Thanks to anybody that's watching us after the fact, as this gets saved out there on the internet for all eternity. And
Yep.
yeah, definitely looking forward to some of these charity auctions and events and things we have coming up. It's great to see the community come together for good, and kind of helping out the community and do something kind of all in the name of a fandom that we share.
Yep. And again, thank you everybody tonight. And like always, may the force be with you.